Madam, shall we start now?
Yes, yes, yes. Good morning. Good morning, Anjali ma'am. Good morning. How are you? Sorry for joining late.
No,
So
no,
sorry.
okay, 2 3 minutes, always.
Yeah, please.
Good morning to all, and without wasting much time, we'll start now. And this topic, brain drain or reverse way you can think also. This is very important topic in the segment of migration, international migration. We always say that even though migration, we have so many people are going and all, but brain drain, that particular segment, it may be less than 1% of total international migration, maybe 0.5 or so. But that segment is very important because all you see today across the globe, today the USA and all the advanced countries, they all hunt for this 0.5 segment. It's very important. They do innovation, they do all the cutting edge research and skill, knowledge, everything you think about global development happening. This segment is very important, and we have none other than Dr. Anjali Sahai today. And before I invite her, we have our director, Professor Sanjay Shah, who will formally introduce Dr. Anjali Sahai. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Sadanand Sahu. Dr. Anjali Sahai, the program coordinator or organizer of this talk, Dr. Sadanand Sahu, all the participants, I can see Vijay Soni ji and Manish Tripathi ji, Vijay Nair, and so many, Swadesh. A very warm welcome to you all for this talk, which is very special. It is indeed an absolute honor for me, ma'am, to welcome Dr. Anjali Sahai, who has very kindly agreed and shared her vast knowledge in this field of brain drain. And I really sincerely thank you, ma'am, for giving your valuable time to share your idea, share your knowledge, share your experience on this very important topic with our learners, with our student of School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. Ma'am, I would like to take an opportunity to introduce you about Indira Gandhi National Open University. Ma'am, Indira Gandhi National Open University is a central university, and it has 21 school of studies, 67 regional centers, and there are many study centers, not only in India, but also many overseas centers all across the world. The Indira Gandhi National Open University, if you see, it is known for quality education. We have millions of learners. The School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies is one of the 21 school of Indira Gandhi National Open University. Our school, ma'am, I would like to say, is a unique in the sense that now, as we all know, that the major focus of education is on new education policy or national education policy is on multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary aspects. So we are really proud to say that we are having a school in Indira Gandhi National Open University, which is basically an enabling space for fostering multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary studies. We are having number of programs. We are offering many master's program. We are offering PG diploma programs, certificate program, MOOC program related to various interdisciplinary aspects. Like Dr. Sahu is program coordinator of many programs like MA in Folklore and Culture Studies. He's also coordinating PG diploma in migration and diaspora. Recently, he has launched, and there are very good number of learners for that. Besides that, we are also offering MA philosophy, masters in environmental science, masters in environmental occupational health, and sustainability science. Likewise, we are also offering the program climate change, waste management, and others. So this is just a brief glimpse of SOITS, and your topic, which is related to brain drain. It's a really very important topic for our learners. And also it has got a multidisciplinary dimension, which is very much suited for our learner, our student. as Dr. Sahu has given me this opportunity to welcome you, ma'am, I would also like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce you to all our participants. Though most of the students who are working in this field, they know you very well. And but just to briefly introduce you, ma'am, Dr. Anjali Sahai, she's an educator, leader, author, researcher, and also a performing artist working as associate professor and program director of political science in the School of Public Service and Global Affairs at Gannon University. She has more than 2 decades of successfully running the Model United Nations program at various universities. And originally, she's from India. We are very proud of you, ma'am. You have received PhD from Old Dominion University in International Studies in 2006, and she holds additional master in History and Business Administration. Basically, her research area focuses on international migration and international relations, and has been many times she's featured on Migration News. She has written many books. Especially one book, Indian Diaspora in the United States, Brain Drain or Brain. It is a groundbreaking book, and it has intersection of economics and political issues to the dimensions of migration, and it concerns over brain drain. So subsequently, she has many publications related to brain drain and brain drain. She has many, I would like to also say that she is also a trained classical dancer in Kathak. And basically, she has, she was a TEDx performer in April 2017, where she has performed her Kathak dance, and she has grant from PA Council of the Arts in 2021. Ma'am, we are so proud of you, and we are so happy to have you over here. Beside that, she has many publications to her credit, many international visits, seminars, and all. If I go on speaking, I think it will take so much of time. So I will not come in between ma'am's talk and you. And once again, on behalf of School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Study, I welcome you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. Now I welcome Dr. Anjali Sahai to present her talk. You can share the, share screen option is there. You can share this.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to say a huge round of warm welcome to everybody who has logged in on a Saturday morning. I know you have a lot of things to do and you are here. That is testimony to your commitment to academia and to this topic. And a huge thank you to Dr. Sadanand Sahu and Dr. Shah for working with me to make this this morning happen. So I will go straight to my presentation, and I will keep it short, keeping in mind that around 30 minutes to 35 minutes, keeping in mind that we may have more questions from the audience, and that way we can make it more interactive. At that point, maybe we can all turn on our videos or something so that it's truly interactive. And I do want to say I'm very happy to be back in India. It's for me, it's as you know, I am from Delhi. I'm from here. This is my hometown, and I'm really excited to be here after 5 years. As you know, all travel was suspended, and so this is really nice. So without so much ado, I'm going to just share my slides because this acts as a guide for me as I speak. And let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see.
Okay, perfect. So this is my topic. This was my dissertation in my PhD. And I felt at that time that this is our story. This is everything that we are going through, and this is an understudied area. So again, as Dr. Sao said, these are pioneering works and early works on migration. So the topic is brain drain or gain. And this was the topic of my dissertation. The book, of course, is different. It is Indian Diaspora in the United States, Brain Drain or Gain. So the title changed when I published this as a book. So what is brain drain, what is brain gain, and what is the empirical evidence to support some of these theories that we developed? I'm going to quickly go over the premise of the book. A lot of this is stuff that I have written in the book, especially data, but I'll try to update a lot of the information as I speak. So when I started writing the book, these were some of the main questions I had. What is, whether the mobility of human capital constitutes a brain gain for the sending country? Because if you look at the jargon, prior to 1990s, it was always about brain drain, how India is having a loss of skilled migrants to the West or to other countries, but especially the Western countries. The second main question I had was, so what? Even if people are moving and migrating, how can this diaspora community promote the image of their home country to their benefit? And then to what extent can the diaspora bridge the gap, between developed and developing countries? So in what ways can this be actually a gain for the country? Hence the terms brain drain and gain. So while brain drain is happening, it's a good thing, it's for the past, but how can that be harnessed as a gain for the sending country? So these were some of the main questions. And within that, what is the role of the state in harnessing the potential and return of the expatriate professionals? So role of the state here is India as the sending country. Those were my case studies. And finally, again, what does this tell us about human capital? How do we redefine theories of power and development in the 21st century? So these were some theoretical arguments that the book covered. These were upfront my hypothesis, and I tried to prove that with the help of research and data. One, I did firmly believe that diaspora communities can become agents of development for their home countries. So the how part will go over that. Second, because Indians tend to be more skilled than, or highly skilled migrants, especially to the United States, because that was my case studies. The level of education and income is more likely to influence economic and political investments for country of origin. And this is also a type of soft power. And this can be something that can really redefine asymmetrical relationship between country of origin and destination. So in the past, we find that country of origin really has not much of a role, and it's not in a very powerful position. But that's not the case anymore. And how has the diaspora community played a role over there? So just try to look at the political side of things. And lastly, a more positive role, and I would like to add today, it's positive. We know that since late 80s, it has been positive, but proactive role by the state is very important. And that really determines the level of return and non-return benefits. With all the research I've done in the last 5 years, I can tell you that in the past, I focused on the economic side of things, the migration side of things, but I firmly believe that more and more the political side of things needs to be sorted out, because that is really defining migration trends. And with that, I mean the leadership in the countries is very important, because that is really driving migration trends today. If the leadership is not pro-immigration, then it can throw all this off, no matter how much we talk about migration. So I'll maybe talk a little bit more about the political side a little bit later. So that's some of the main research questions and hypothesis statements I had. And this was the organization of the book. Since I'm reviewing the book today, I thought it would be good to get some book slides here. So I kind of broke it down into two parts. The part one is more of providing background and doing a literature review, looking at the history of India and US relations and all the linkages that we can find between India and the United States, primarily political, economic, and eventually migration. And also looked at the history of immigration in the United States and what the trends are. So this was the background. And then this is really the brain drain part and background and literature review. And then the empirical evidence is when I argue that it is not brain drain. And even if it is, so what? In what ways can the home country still benefit? And I primarily looked at remittances, return migration, and diaspora networks. Further expanded the role of Indian diaspora and the role of the lobbying power of the diaspora and soft power of that sort, and what kind of a brain gain it can be. Looked at role of the Indian state and different ways in which the Indian state is also harnessing the power and prowess of the Indian diaspora. So that's the organization of the book. Quick word for some of the data I had used. A lot of data. I mean, and today the data keeps changing, and you have to follow the different news very carefully. But for the most part, for United States, I got a lot of my information. Primary sources is very important in research of this kind. Although secondary is also fine, but some of the data that I collected were directly from the US Department of Homeland Security. And they have yearly publications, Yearbook of Immigration Statistics. So for anybody looking, for anyone looking to do research, I highly recommend looking at Department of Homeland Security. This link has changed now, so I apologize. I did not have time to update this, but it is dhs.gov, and you can find Yearbook of Immigration Statistics. Every year it is updated. The second source is Census Bureau. I think these are the two top factual information. And the USCIS is now Department of Homeland Security. So that's merged into one database. And from the Indian side, I have looked at various websites. Migration Policy Institute is good as a global research place. And there's so many different sources that you can find. At the time, I collected a lot of my data of India from indiaday.org. I had come here as a student in 2003 summer, and I did an internship with FICCI in New Delhi for 2 months and collected a lot of my information, sending country and what the role of the state has been in harnessing the role of the diaspora. So these are some of the places where I got information. IMF is very important. IMF will give you a lot of good information about moving on. I don't want to go too much in literature review today because I think I've already explained some of the main themes. But these were some of the concepts that I did look at. The literature on brain drain, all the origin concepts, countermeasures, and not only India, but also China, South Africa. A lot of developing countries have talked about brain drain and how they lose the best and the brightest to the West. Brain gain strategies. Today, there's a lot of work, rich literature on brain gain, such as brain circulation. You look at remittances, network approaches. Some shining examples for remittance, of course, is India. You also have Mexico, you have Philippines, you have China. For network, I think Taiwan really stands out as one of those countries that have really been able to benefit from the networks of the Taiwanese diaspora in the Silicon Valley and so on. So I think these are some of the brain gain strategies in place. Of course, how can this be development? How migration and development is linked with remittances, I think, is one of the biggest ways. And lastly, the importance of networks, as I said, is really important. Since I am a student of international relations, I definitely linked international migration to international relations theories, in particularly asymmetry, human capital, and soft power. I think I really like to work on those and try to find a linkage between migration and so on. So put everything down in a table. If you look at migration, pre-19th century and post-20th century, here are some basic findings, which is not a surprise. I mean, everybody knows this. I just put it together. If you look at the pre-19th century migration, it was mostly involuntary. A lot of Indians went to different countries, a lot of it as indentured laborers. If you look at post-20th century, it was mostly voluntary. If you look at people movement after 1990, it's very voluntary, or even after 1970, I should say. The difference now is that earlier it was both unskilled and semi-skilled. Today, most of the migration, especially to the US, tends to be highly skilled labor. Earlier it was human, skilled migrants. Today it is human capital, skilled, knowledge, training. There's a lot of elements to that. And this was drain. Of course, it's always it's drain, but this was termed brain drain in the post-20th century migration. So just some connections or comparisons between the two centuries. It's a lot of words on this slide, so I will just summarize it. The two main sides of argument of brain drain is essentially the nationalist model and the internationalist model. The one side of argument that country loses a lot of investment that it's spent on people, resources on higher education is lost through migration in less developing countries. And this is not just anyone, this is the best and the brightest, hence we're losing human capital. And as a result, home countries' economies are gravely impacted. As opposed to that is the internationalist model that says that the less developing countries are mainly exaggerating the migration of the skilled because only a few of the professionals migrate and in any given point in time. And also, this is within the operation of a specialized market for human capital. It's supply and demand. And eventually, that's just the way globalization works. So I naturally picked two countries closest to my heart because I lived in both countries. And I wanted to look at Indian migration to the United States. So I looked at India as a sending country, US as a receiving country, and clearly this is a changing relationship over time. As you know, India and the United States share a special bond, not only because they are two of the strongest and the largest democracies, but also because they've had a lot of linkages in global organizations. They work together in different ways. They are part of the Quartet. They work together in economic areas, science, technology, and so on and so forth. But the areas broadly is economic, political, migration. So brain drain is the data related to how many people are moving. And this, of course, is the empirical evidence to support the argument. So in my book, I looked at migrations from 1997 to 2006 because I had to submit it for publication, so I had to stop at some point. The trend itself has gone back up, which is on the next slide. But if you're looking at how many people, so again, Department of Homeland Security compiles this, this has only gone up over time. If you look at, this is something I pulled from Migration Policy Institute, a broader picture. If you look at all immigrants in the United States before 2000 and the share of Indian immigrants, you can see that the light blue has initially gone down, but then picks up greatly And today, Indians, Indo-Americans are approximately 4 million people in the United States. This is after the 2020 census, so they're still probably working on the data, but it is not about the numbers. What is important is that it is the fastest growing immigrant group in the United States. That's where it becomes important. And not only is it the fastest growing, it is also the wealthiest and has the highest average median education and income levels. So that's where this is a very visibly affluent and influential group and one of the fastest growing in the United States. So I think that what gives it more credence. So the same thing, of course, when I looked at in my initially compiled all this information, I mean, just primarily looking at the pie charts, you can see that Asia is pretty prominent when it comes to people getting legal permanent resident status, and this has only become bigger and bigger over time. The other big number, if anyone is wondering, is the other big chunk. And can anyone tell me which country is in the Americas is contributing outside of the Asia?
It must be some Latin American country like Colombia, Venezuela.
That's right.
Mexico, even Mexico. Yeah.
Mexico. I was waiting for that, but you're right, because from Colombia and Venezuela, all countries are pushing to Mexico, and they're from Mexico. Great. I'm so happy everyone's still listening. Thank you. So I think you can see that if you take out Mexico from the equation, you can see how prominent India and China is. By continent, even if I break up Asia, it's mainly China and then India. So, and then you have the preference, employment preference by region. In terms of employment as well, Asia is pretty huge. And then I pulled up a recent, this is 2018, sorry. And you can see that when it comes to H-1Bs, particularly employment-based preference, out of all H-1Bs granted to all the countries in the world that are immigration, trying to get immigration into the US, actually 80% of all H-1Bs particularly go to Indians. So it's pretty huge, but in terms of all, employment-based preferences, you can see that legal permanent residence from India is pretty high. And when it comes to refugees and asylees, you can see it has dropped down. So that's not the bulk of the immigration from India. It tends to be in employment-based and student, as you can see. So in 1 year, I think it was interesting. I looked at this 1 year because it was huge. You can even see that the second highest country for out of all, even China, which is so huge, but India was very high. So in 2006, you can see H-1B was very high, and this trend itself has continued. And further, to talk further about this, so which areas, as you can probably imagine, it is mostly in STEM fields that most of the employment is actually happening, in IT particularly. And this is student and exchange visitors admission by region. It was prominent in 2006, obviously. Asia, and within Asia, it's India and China. That was pretty huge. You can see that it's almost 50%, and if not more today. And this I looked up for our presentation. This is 2022 statistics, and you can see that India is at #2 spot for international students in the United States. But again, what's interesting is that the percentage of Chinese students is going down and India is going up. So maybe this trend will reverse and India will be the top spot for the Indians in terms of students, those seeking student status. India might go at the top position. Now, this was pretty down in the last 4 years. I think during the Trump administration, there was a lot of policies there that was discouraging for students, and so that numbers dropped. But since 2020, with the Biden administration, you can see more and more students coming to the United States from India. And just as a personal example, I can tell you in Gannon University, we have a lot of Indian students that are coming in to take admission. And you can just visibly see that the number of Indian students has gone up. So I broke that down earlier by country. When I said Asia was 50%, India was at number 2. Now you can see India has climbed as the number 2 spot. And if I'm not mistaken, it can go up. So this was a quick table that I created of all the immigration. This is history of immigration in the United States. I will only mention the one big year. I think the Immigration and Nationality Act amendments of 1965. This is important because this is related to brain drain. Prior to this act, United States admitted immigrants based on their country of origin or where they're coming from. And Europe was given a preference amongst all immigrants. And after 1965, the gates opened for immigration for those who can bring in some kind of skill set to the United States. And so it kind of opened up the gates for doctors and engineers and scientists or anybody. In a lot of third world countries, people started coming to the United States, and particularly we see brain drain happening. And that's when we will see a lot of immigration happening. I have a question from Manish. Yes,
yeah, ma'am, I want to ask that way back in 1882, what was the reason for excluding exclusively the Chinese national from immigrating?
The Chinese Exclusion Act, the history of that was basically Second Opium War. I think US got right to bring, they won the war against China. So part of the treaty was they could bring a lot of Chinese people to work in the US transcontinental railways. So for 20 years or so, they started bringing a lot of them to work in the railways. But after 20, 30 years, there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment, and they were taking away jobs from the native population, or they were vilified for how they looked or how they behaved. And so this was, if you look at the anti-Chinese sentiment was pretty high. You can see that because of some of the laws, like the laws for even killing a Chinaman was literally you could pay and get out of it. I mean, this was literally how little valued they were, but to the point that they were literally excluded. So there was a Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 prohibiting Chinese naturalization and provided deportation for illegal Chinese in the US. So you see the anti-Chinese sentiment. And then in the early 20th century, the anti-Chinese eventually becomes anti-Japanese with the Second World War and so on. Good question, because it definitely relates. If you go back to the last 3-4 years, all of this has resurfaced in the United States. I think the big one, of course, was 1965, huge, because this is when brain drain started. And this is when a lot of people from third world countries, especially highly skilled migration, started happening. And this brought a lot of people. So I will segue into my, gosh, I feel like I'm at the end and I haven't even spoken. So I'll quickly wrap this up in 5 minutes and do more of this in discussion. So brain gain is what I argued, that since it is a voluntary migration, we cannot really stop brain drain from happening. So what can we get out of it? So 3 specific things that I found: remittances, return, and diaspora networks. So these 3 for me were brain gain. Today, India maintains, and this is 2007, today, $80 billion comes back to India in the form of remittances. I'm working on current research, which looks at did remittances go up or go down during the pandemic year? And you would think that it went down, which is true, as many migrants also lost their jobs. But we find that when it comes to remittances from US, that actually went up. And this is something that the IMF has also reported. The World Bank, Dilip Rath has done a lot of work on this. So very, very interesting area of research. Yeah, go ahead. Ngozi, Louis?
Okay. Good morning. It's early in the morning here in Nigeria. Yeah. So my question is, since you concluded that it's not brain drain, but brain gain. So how did you make recommendations, or how can the Indian government sustain this brain gain for the socioeconomic development of India? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think I will talk about it in a couple of slides later, so I'll just save it for then. I'll just quickly go over the stats here and then come to that question. So we have just quickly how remittances. I think the role of the government has been to harness the ease in which money can come in, the events, the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas events, the facilitations, the awards, and just making it easier for entrepreneurs to do business in India. I think those are some of the ways in which government has worked. But very quickly, this has only gone up over time. And I said current numbers by 2022 is that $80 billion, huge. NRI deposits has also gone up. Again, all of this was facilitated by the Indian government. It's important that they supported all of this in different ways. Something that's hard to actually quantify because this is individual decisions and you don't know how many people are going back and there's no actual firm numbers here. This is more anecdotal. As you talk to people and hear about it or have some stellar stories that are published in the newspapers and so on. But return migration has also happened quite a bit. Return is not temporary. Return is not seasonal. Return is when people decide to come back to their homeland to resettle. And return is important because why I treat this as brain gain, because then people who come back are also trained in their origin, let's say the country of settlement was the US, and then they further studied over there or got trained there in their jobs. When they come back, they bring all of that training. In fact, you can say it's America's brain drain at that point. But when they come back, what do? They have startups, they invest in business, health, education. Sometimes, they have project-tied workers and so on and so forth. So they're important in that sense. And return migration can bring different kinds of benefits. And lastly, as we know, Diaspora Networks is going back to the concept that location is immaterial. Whether you come back or not physically, you can have Diaspora Networks. You're still connected to people in your countries of origin and settlement, and you can use those connections to have startups, have knowledge dissemination, and you can use, as I said, remote mobilization of diaspora's resources. So this is all part of brain gain strategies, and I think you can go back to India, Taiwan, South Africa, China, Colombia, so many countries have really harnessed the diaspora networks. So I keep saying Taiwan because I'm very fascinated by what they did. They used the diaspora networks to start silicon factories in Taiwan, and they trained people to work there, and so on. So networks, when we say it can be used for facilitation, generation, the discussion, exchange, and dissemination. And it can be used for all of these different things, business, professional, political, and social. So its networks is multifaceted. So the last part, very quickly, I looked at development theories, especially modernization theory, how you can become agents of change, because migrant savings and investment has a multiplier effect on the home economy. So when you send remittances back home, it's not only that money is used to spend in the local economy, and that in different ways, it's savings and so on. And the other side, of course, is dependency theory, which was more supportive of the brain drain argument that inequalities are actually perpetuated and exasperated between LDCs and. So the one thing that I looked at is the role of the diaspora in the country of settlement, United States in this case, and how has the diaspora community able to harness any changes for themselves and for their country of origin. And this I term soft power because they are agents of change in this sense, and how they can change the relationship, power relationship between the two countries. I don't have too much on it on the slide, but one of the different ways in diaspora communities have really worked, they lobby a lot to the governments. They lobby to both Republicans and Democrats. Currently, we have various congressmen from Indo-American community who constantly work not only for the Indo-American community in the US, but sometimes they lobby to have better policies towards India. So one example there is how the Indian diaspora lobbied very hard to get the US, Indo-US nuclear deal to go through in the year 2006, when it was President Bush and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. So again, there's a lot of work being done by the diaspora that could help in policy influence for the home country, but a lot of their work is really about the Indo-American community in the US and how that can be a better experience. So the case for brain drain and future of immigration laws, I think the reason I moved away from brain drain, again, that debate I thought was too negative, and we need to look at the economic benefits of brain drain. So the brain gain needs to be focused on, and how this can be important for migration. I think I'm at the end of my slide, so I'll stop sharing and make it more of a question answer session and take any questions or anything I missed. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Thank you, Anjali, for a very good presentation and very informative also. So now I think all the students, you can ask any question related to this. Yes, Manish has another question.
I will be talking about two things. Number one, I want to ask what was the result of your research, ma'am?
The result of my research was to really, I think there's two things there, of course. One is, of course, to quantify and have it written down, what are the trends of our times. So I think in that sense, it was a contribution to identify these trends and try to look at some of the until then, I think a lot of the work on brain drain was very prominent. So one of the results I found was that we need to move away from brain drain and really focus on brain gain. I think it tied in with globalization, the opening up of borders, and 1990s was a time when a lot of migration was happening. So as a result, I would say that it is bringing more focus and light on this topic in a very timely, I think it was more of the timing that we want to quantify and talk about these things. Also, migration is an understudied area. It's new now, it's important now, but when you go back to the early 2000s, nobody talked about migration. Like migration is lower politics. It's always about terrorism and nuclear and so on. So I think this is where we can draw some connections between politics and economics and migration. So I think that in that sense it was a result.
And then, ma'am, I will like to offer my comment on this topic. My comment is that more particularly, not only in Indian but any contest, is that brain drain happens because a country has created some island of excellence in a particular areas and not all areas. What I mean that there is a concept of value chain. For example, a person gets education and then he gets opportunity to either work in enterprises or create his own business. For example, if you take a case in India, we have the IITs and IIM. Now they are the center of excellence and we have sustained them over a period of time. They are creating highly qualified and intelligent people, worker, but we have not continued with the value chain. We have not created a system where entrepreneurship is respected or those high kind of jobs. So gap is there. Because if that this gap, the highly brained people are migrating to other countries like USA. So this kind of system can be stopped when we create center of excellences in all entire value chain, knowledge creation and what to do with the knowledge creation, either creating entrepreneurship opportunity or high quality job. Until this is not there, then this kind of brain drain will continue to happen. Thank you, ma'am.
And if I can quickly add to that comment, I'll be brief. I think there will always be pull factors. And I think eventually migration is a case of supply and demand. There is a demand in the United States for highly skilled immigrants in STEM. They will always be, and that's why they're able to pull in the best and the brightest. But the pull factor is the centers of excellence in research and work and so on. And I think that will, unless till there is a pull factor, there will always be migration. And for high population countries like India and China, it will always be the case that you will have people going out because simply cannot sustain, like you said, you don't have enough centers to employ all these people. So I think it's more of a brain drain, let's say for South Africa, a small population country, than India, which is a very big population country. Thank you. I think
we have Abha and Harjinder.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sadanand sir, and good morning, Anjali, and quite a very insightful book. I'm sure we will love reading through the whole text. There were two questions in my mind. One, were you able to do an analysis about which sector brings in more migration to US from India? One. And then second, you had mentioned about reverse migration, which is basically coming back to India. But have you been able to do an analysis, and what is your thoughts about which category comes back? Is it after a retirement age, lots of people come back to settle back here and be with the family, or it's the young also who are being pulled back to work in these certain sectors?
So very good questions. I'll try to answer as best as possible. In terms of which areas gets the most migrants from India, I think it is definitely in H1B, which is highly skilled immigrants in STEM subjects. That tends to be a big pull factor. Immigration is also big for India. It's called, a category is called family reunification. So when you have one person coming in, joining job, then maybe family will come and rejoin. Those are also counted. So family reunification is another area in which you see, and student migration, as I said earlier, are also big from India. They're second, you saw the numbers, they're second, but they're big numbers. And why it's important is most students like to stay back and apply for job. If you look at current trends, more and more students are coming, taking loans, and they are coming, they want to use the the opportunity at the end of their education cycle to get a job and pay off their loans. Eventually, they like to go for green cards and settle back. In terms of how many are going back, I think that's where I mentioned the political dimension is important. If the country is welcoming and immigration policies are good for them, like they can easily get green card and settle down, then they will stay back. If it is very, full of hurdles and hassles, like we saw some immigration changes in 2017 by executive orders, at that point, a lot of people were thinking of going back, and return migration was a little bit on the high. Or students were also leaving US and going to other destinations like Canada and UK, Australia. So I think it's all about political dimension. But from anecdotal evidence, I can tell you that a lot of people are more prone to going back or taking chances and going to a third country, like, a different country, than it was the case 10 years ago. Like I think a lot of people are more flexible today. I wouldn't, just move because we came, 20 years ago. So I think those trends are there.
Okay, Harjinder, can you
Thank you.
unmute? Harjinder? Otherwise, you write your question in the chat box.
I think Abhay had also asked about in their older, like when people retire, do they go back? I think those trends are very few and far in between, because what's important is that now the second generation is there. They're born and raised. They have more of a Pan-Asian experience, and their children are now settled in the US, and it's very hard for people to come back. So.
Okay. Vijay, do you have any question?
Good morning, everybody. Sir, I have a question to Dr. Anjali. Her presentation was very good, quite in depth, and I really like the aspects that she has dealt with. My question is, Dr. Anjali, do you see a political aspect of brain loss also? What is the political aspect of a brain loss? Because countries which are investing a lot of resources in building up talent. So how do you see a political aspect? Because even in the US, there was anti-immigration aspect, which was highlighted during the previous regime. So what are the political aspect that you see in brain loss, I would say, especially?
So brain loss, if you can explain again, which for whom? Like if people leave America and come back, then it's America's brain drain, is in that sense?
No, brain loss in terms of the home country of the immigrants, like especially. I would just like to highlight a situation in Philippines, especially, So it happened with the case of nurses. A lot of nurses started going to US, where they formed the highest number of immigrant group among in the profession group. So now they are deprived of a new generation of nurses or medical professionals. So that was an innocent phase when they could build up their capital, health capital, health resource capital. So what do you say? Of course, when we talk about brain circulation, they might come back, say after 10 years or 20 years. But by that time, the time loss is great to have be deprived of the first mover advantage. So how do you see this one?
So I agree with you. I mean, of course, brain drain is still happening, and I think that's where it is. The bottom line is that migration tends to be a voluntary process. If someone wants to move, they will move. If there is a betterment, right? If there is a chance for betterment, in this case, salary, maybe job opportunity or better research or whatever it is, people will move, and brain drain will always be there. It will be a loss. I think that's where the role of the state is important. To what extent can they retain the best and the brightest? When I migrated, there was 6 IITs only. Today, there's a lot more. right? So that's I think so that's where, you know, development is a home state that has to be done. So there's two ways. One is prevention, one is cure. You can try to prevent people from leaving. You have to build up the infrastructure and so on, provide employment. In Philippines, people are not, it's not only economic reasons. Philippines, there's a lot of political repression and killings. A lot of people are trying to escape those things, you know, and as long as there are problems and there will be a pull factor, people will go. So I think in Philippines case, you cannot stop it. Maybe you can go back and see remittances for Philippines is very high, and to what extent has that helped the Philippine state. But it's migration is simply supply and demand. If there is demand and if people want to escape, the push factors are not just economic, it's also political, you know, religious persecution, so on and so forth. People will go if they feel that they have better opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah, I think the role of home country government is important in this way. You rightly pointed out, because they have to come out with a policy in a particular sector if there is a massive loss, and so they maybe can come out with certain policies where they are not deprived of certain areas. Thank you, Dr. Anjali. Thanks a lot.
I personally keep, sorry, so I was...
no, please complete. Vijay, after that.
I'm personally in favor of brain drain, in the sense, not like in the typical sense, so I will explain that. But I don't know, like today you have people like Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, or Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google. They are in global companies that is helping the whole world, not just the United States. I don't know if they had not migrated, if they had achieved the same thing. So you have to look at where the global hub for multinationals or these big companies are, and their influence is not only for US, their influence is global. So I think that brain drain in that sense was good. They went there, they were able to innovate and join the companies that are innovative and create all of our technologies that is helping all of us today. So in that sense, I think maybe I can quote Dr. Smita Tiwari, she's here. She said, brains needs to be utilized no matter where they are, you know? So that's important.
Yes, Dr. Smita, you have any point? We have Swadesh and Vijay. Vijay first, raise your hand. Vijay.
Good morning, everyone. My question is regarding brain gain. Is India ready to receive Indian migrants who are with, as you have given an example just now, that globally Sundar Pichai and all, they have gained a lot of knowledge. So similar, might not be the similar, but there are many people who are with the knowledge and experience. Is our country ready economically, politically, and the other perspective to receive migrants? Like after retirement, of course, they are coming back. But they're not just coming back with the age, like 60 years, we are retired. They're coming back with the knowledge also. So are they getting the right opportunity to showcase their knowledge over there? Is India ready for it?
I think
I'll shorten my question.
Yeah.
I'll shorten my question. I'll shorten my question. My question is, the people who are willing to come back to India after retirement or before retirement, is a country ready to receive them with the knowledge what they have? Are they giving opportunity to showcase in India?
I think the answer is yes, because we are seeing return migration, especially to software technology parks that are created in Hyderabad and Bangalore, and I think even Gurgaon. I know a lot of people will not come back if India was not offering them something. Family ties are important, home ties are important, but if they cannot come back and especially if they're still working, you know, if they cannot reuse their skills in the same or similar job or manner, they would not be coming back. So I think definitely India is ready and does offer, maybe not in all areas, but I know that good part of returnees end up going back to Bangalore and Hyderabad and STEM maybe.
I would like to add one more point here. Like in US and all, if they are going to European countries, of course, they have an opportunity to stay back over there if they are not willing to come back. But in Gulf countries, it is not like that. They will like a, push factor. They will make us to leave. So in such conditions, is a country ready to receive us?
I'm not sure about that, about the migration from Gulf, but countries, I don't think they can say no. I mean, if you are eligible to come back, you can come back. Government cannot stop you.
But that's not like that stopping us. Of course, we are coming back to our country, but at the same time, we are coming back with a huge knowledge and experience. So are we going to get the same opportunity to work and make ourselves confident economically, politically, and socially to live over there again with the same lifestyle what we had over here?
I think it's very much possible. I don't think it's not possible. I think it's just simply finding the right opportunity for each person. So it ends up becoming, it also goes back to how much unemployment is there in the home country to start with, and how much they can take in more. But if they are, I think skilled people will get employment no matter where they are. I think that's how it goes.
I have a point to say. In fact, some of the top people from India who are heading planning commission, even Manmohan Singh, and many others, they are all returning migrants, you can say. So Sam Pitroda played a very big role in the revolution. Then so many people, it all depends upon your social capital back home. If you don't have social capital, you will have problem here also. Not just your own skill and others. Okay, Shwadesh, you have a question?
Yeah, already Vijaya from Kuwait just pointed out. We also looking this demographic dividend. From Gulf migrants, there are many blue collar workers every year. They're migrating there, and they coming after that. Few years they worked there and they coming back to India. But the government of India or the state government, they should not have rehabilitation and reintegration plans to these migrant workers. It is a big problem after this brain gain also. According to their skill sets, the government need to make some provisions to make them rehabilitation, reintegration in source country. Thank you.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you. The overseas citizens should not only be seen as a bank, it's, if they are coming back either voluntarily or involuntarily, then how they can be reintegrated. I think this is where role of the state, and I would even add state governments. So India, if you look at India, it's not the same all over India. Some states are doing a better job. And I admit I don't have that much knowledge in this area, but some states do seem to have a better reintegration of their migrant workers. I think I read somewhere, maybe Kerala was it, or Karnataka. I think one of the they have more they have more awareness and the more more reintegration. And so on. So I think role of the state government, role of federal government, both is important.
It's in Kerala, ma'am.
Okay, right. I remember.
Norka, they are working on it.
Yes.
So we have, I think 2 questions are written in the chat box. Anjali, you can read, but before that, Viram is there. Viram, you can ask. Viram?
Thank you so much for your presentation, ma'am. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to read your book. My question was that if you're talking about second generation immigrants coming back to their home country, does difficulty in cultural practices, in adopting to the cultural practices, play any role? Why second generation immigrants don't want to come back to their home countries?
Actually, I couldn't hear very clearly. If you
Ram,
want to just put it in the chat, or if you
yes,
heard it
Ram,
from
you can write in the chat box. Meanwhile, we have two other questions, Harjinder and Nagonji. Okay. So Harjinder, can you just directly speak in case your mic is working?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Am I audible now?
yes, we can hear.
First of all, I would like to thanks to the ma'am that it is very interesting topic which we discussed today. And my question is about the, I think some of the other participants have already pointed out this point that as ma'am already discussed in the lecture that the return of migrants is very much important for the brain gain. But the facts shows that the Indian internationally mobile students, which are originated from India, and all other skilled people who originated from India but don't come back. The return of immigrants is very at very low rate in India. So, what type of policies and economic, socio-economic environment should be there in India to enhance the return of that migrants so that they contribute in development here? And I think it will be the brain gain.
So, good question, Harjinder. I think that is the whole premise of the book, that you don't have to return to contribute to India's gain, right? You can remittances come back in the form of money. That's huge. If you look at foreign direct investment, compare that to remittances. That is bigger than FDI to India. So I think that is one of the arguments, that you don't have to facilitate return in order to benefit from overseas. There's different ways in which you can benefit. Even if the diaspora community can lobby the US government for any policies that benefit India, and then, that the nuclear deal happened, it was facilitated more with the diaspora community's efforts. That benefited India. So we have to think outside the box. Return is not the only way in which you can benefit from the migrants who are overseas. The other argument is that, is India ready to take in another 5, 6, 10 million people and add them to the workforce in high population countries? Do you really want in an already squeezed job market? So those are the things. And as I said, at the end of the day, you can only facilitate. I think Indian government likes to facilitate investment more than return. They want more investment by overseas migrants. And I think more and more policies are created to make it a smooth affair, so that they can invest in India. I think those are ways in which they have been working hard. I hope I was able to answer.
Yes, actually many questions are there, but maybe 2 more questions will take. And Abha, you can ask your last question.
Yeah, Anjali, this discussion was very interesting. And, I just had a thought, when the migrants return and they are offered jobs which people within India also are able to do, not necessarily could be, with the foreign degrees and the working experience. It really improves the quality of work, but there are also competent people who did not feel the need of going out of the country. In your book or in your research, did you find any evidence of discontentment or the social integration? While it's a job of the government, but I'm sure there would be a lot of disharmony created, because always migration, be it an internal migration or external migration, there is a little bit of disharmony. Did you find any evidence of anything, and would you like to share it with us? It would be very useful. Thank you.
Disharmony between whom? Those who went and those who stayed back, or?
Those who went and came back and were offered some better positions, which somebody locally who had been working his way up was not given. And then there is a disharmony between it. I mean, that's a conflict. It's basically the, like you mentioned, the Mexico and the US, that's for the lowly jobs and other things. But here we are talking about STEM and, you know, a higher level. That's what I was just interested to know.
I think human capital is evaluated by their level of skill. And when you migrate, you have a skill set, but keep in mind that when you go to another country, you are further skilled and trained, right? If I can take my own example, I did my master's in India, but I did my PhD in US and did job over there. And I'm trained over there in a different way. And if that is seen as more valuable, should I return, then it will be something that is valuable. So I don't know the answer to this, but I think at the end of the day, it's everyone has their own resume, I should say, or CV or skill set, and it's how it fits for that job, you know. And I think that's how people get jobs. So I'm not aware of any social distribution.
Okay. The reason why I asked this question was, you know, when I sometimes in the jobs interviews where I have been sitting for my own projects and other things, many a times the counterpart or the client may be just saying, oh, if they are Harvard returned or Yale or something, why don't you bring them? And I would say, why not an IITian who is here, working here? But if you've gone back and come back, then you are more accepted. The requirement may be similar. So that's why one of the reasons I just asked. Thank you so much for it.
Iran question could be asked. She has written, does difficulty in adapting to cultural practices play any role for second generation immigrants not wanting to return to their home countries? So this is the last question. We will conclude after this.
So this is a huge topic. It's a very, very good question. And it's a topic in itself, you know, like you can go on talking about this. So what about the second generation, right? So do they want to come back? Anecdotally, I know that they don't. They are, you're uprooting them. So they're, where is home for them? It is not India. It is America. So they are born and raised in a different country. They identify themselves as Pan-Asian. I may have mentioned it. By Pan-Asian, I mean, they don't, you know, there's not much difference between, the whole Asian experience is collective over there. And they have their roots, you know, they have their roots, they have their parents who have their roots, but they're firmly rooted in the new, for them, the country is American, you know. Like many times I tell my daughter, don't behave like an American. She's like, what do you mean? I am American. You know, that's the answer I get. So, and she's only 12. So this is, their identity is different. And I think it is hard for them to uproot and come back because that's the only country they know. And I think, I don't know if they want to come back. But they probably do if their parents are coming back. So those are based on individual cases. I don't see a collective answer to that.
One more question is there by Luis. He asked whether OCI, Overseas Citizenship of India, and brain gain, is there any linkage? What kind of effect it has? OCI
and
brain gain, is there any linkage? Does it facilitate brain gain? Is there any study in you, by you or anybody? I think you can ask directly, Luis.
I think I got the question. I mean, if there is a link between OCI, right, or Overseas Citizens of India, and brain gain. I'm not sure about that. I mean, the OCI is involved in, all the different ways in which we talked about, especially remittances and so on. Not sure what else new over there. But Nigeria is a very important country. In fact, a lot of brain drain happens from Nigeria as well. South Africa, Nigeria, these are huge without migration as well. So I think the same models could be applied to Nigeria, how Nigerian state can utilize the overseas citizens of Nigeria to harness development.
Okay, Luis, you got your answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So anything else? Otherwise, I request Professor Sachisa. Madam, are you there? Just 1 minute to conclude this. And 1 minute. So let me, Anjali, it was really nice to meet you personally and listen you. You have improved those areas which actually you have done 10 years back, I think, this research. And there is lots of gap you feel today. And so many things to work on, but I think this is an area which is very promising and a lot many things to be done for any diaspora sending, countries which have lots of diaspora. India being one of the leading country, it has lots of example, lots of best practices to, give to other countries like Nigeria and other. The policy level, they actually sometimes see China and India, Philippines. We also see some of the best model in Philippines, especially when remittance is concerned. Even Bangladesh has lots of good practices. China has very good practice in investment. That is also brain gain. So there are many things to learn from each other, and your study especially shows us some of very good perspective. It has a historical side and how people are going. Even you have brought this cultural angle also. So very thoughtful, very insightful, and I thank you on behalf of our school, on behalf of our students, all the participants, and look forward to listen more on this area. Even you have worked on philanthropy, that also one area we want to hear. Maybe in future, whenever you're free, we'll invite you for philanthropy. So these are very important area, and thank you very much for spending your time, valuable time when you came here, and I was very happy actually. In a short time you told, and I was thinking about you, because whenever you come, I think during this time only you come, July, August. So this is the vacation time, I remember.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I also thank our director. I think.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali.
Yes.
Thank you.
All the students.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed all the questions. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Sahu, for arranging everything in such a short time. So again, kudos to you. Thank you.
No, it is a pressure on you. Short time you have managed. For us, it is just mobilize our students, but our students also, they have, I think today it was very interactive. All of you, Manish and Abha, Luis, everybody, you have made the day, and the speaker actually wants question. That is the success of a speaker.
I, of course, have a lot of comments that I thought of saying. I couldn't say it all. So hopefully it was sufficient, but definitely brain gain in so many different ways. One last thing I wanted to say, because this was recent. What did the diaspora do? One of the interesting angles to add to all the linkages is health. So during COVID, how much diaspora raised in a span of 48 hours and sent money to India? I think I forgot to mention that. I think those are the areas in which you can see diaspora coming and helping the state. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Anjali, and
Thank
you
you.
everybody. We have one more class. We'll come back after 10 minutes. It will be by Dr. Firoz Khan on international policy. So we'll stop now. Again, I'll come back. Okay. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Dr.
much.
Anjali. Thank you so much for giving a very good
Okay,
lecture. I think
you are
everybody
here.
is really very, gained from your talk. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Actually, you have been there and I thought I am not to disturb you.
No. It's my pleasure, Sardharji.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have one more class actually after 10 minutes. So we'll be coming back.